Good day to all of you. Thank you very much for joining today's program. Today happens to be the Tithi Puja of Swami Advaitananda. Advaitananda happens to be one of the 16 direct disciples who was even older than Sri Ramakrishna, 8 years older than Sri Ramakrishna. For the first time when Swami Advaitananda, Buddha Gopal met with Sri Ramakrishna, he was 56 years old already when Sri Ramakrishna was 48 years old. He was born in 1828, 8 years before Sri Ramakrishna. So now my name is Nirmal Ganguly, and we hope that all of you are doing well with your family and loved ones. So let us, this will be our second attempt to do online birthday celebration of online celebration of the events. So now I would request Swami Udaaranandaji, our minister in charge, to kindly start the arati. He will first give the arati, do the arati, and there will be 4 songs, arati songs, and after that he will speak about the life and teachings of Swami Advaitananda. Over to Swamiji.
Tvai Ramakrishna Martyamritam Tapadam जय भगवान श्री रामकृष्ण देव की जय। जय माई की जय। जय स्वामी जी महाराज। जय गंगा माई की जय। जय श्री बुद्धदेव की जय। जय श्री सत्संग की जय। जय श्री विवेकानंद की जय। Jaya Ramakrishna Vedanta Jaya Mata Shama Sudha Atiramata Jaya Vivekananda Paramadayana Ramana Chishuta Jaya Sri Ramakrishna Jaya Premananda Prema Moya Kale Gora Jaya Shivananda Jaya Lila Sahajara Yogi Yogananda Jaya Nitya Nirajana Jaya Shashi Guru Pade Katatamana Seva Para Yogi Para Abhutananda Abhinanda Jaya Gatamohamanda Yogarata Jagavrata Turiya Tyaga Sharata Sudhira Shanta Jaya Pranamaka Jire Shiva Sevarata Kammadana Veera Jaya Sri Vidyananda Prashantana Meera Ravina Gopala Matri Seva Parayana Sharada Sharada Devade Gata Pranamana Bharata Charitra Jaya Subodha Sharada Navavara Chavira Viveka Samvara Kathamrita Valishana Prema Jana Jana Kirishavara Jaya Vishwashakaya Ramakrishna Dasa Dasa Jaya Samakaya Ramakrishna Devastana Jaya Bala Bala Ramakrishna Nama Jaya Shravana Mandala Bhakta Manjita Jaya Charana Kamala
Glory and salutations to Sri Ramakrishna, who is the bringer of universal harmony. Glory and salutations to the supremely pure mother, the precious daughter of Shyama Sundari. Glory and salutations to Swami Vivekananda, whose great compassion knew no bounds. Glory and salutations to the Lord's spiritual son, Sri Radha, Swami Brahmananda. Glory and salutations to Swami Premananda, the embodiment of pure love for God. Glory and salutations to Swami Shivananda, the companion in the Lord's eternal flame. Glory and salutations to Swami Yogananda and to the eternal Swami Niranjanananda. Glory and salutations to Swami Ramakrishnananda, whose body and mind are offered at the Guru's feet. Glory and salutations to Swami Advaitanandaji, the expert yogi devoted to service. Glory and salutations to Swami Advaitanandaji, forever free from bondage and delusion. Glory and salutations to Swami Turiyananda, ever rejoicing in yoga with the vow of renunciation. Glory and salutations to Swami Sharananda, steady and peaceful like Sri Ganesha. Glory and salutations to Swami Akhandananda, engaged in the service of God and mankind. Glory and salutations to Swami Udaaranandaji, supremely peaceful with great depth. Glory and salutations to Swami Advaitanandaji, deeply absorbed in the service of the Mother. Glory and salutations to Swami Trigunatitananda, whose life and mind are offered to Holy Mother. Glory and salutations to Swami Subodhananda, childlike and simple, with great renunciation, who always relied on the practice of intense discrimination. Glory and salutations to Master Mahashaya, the cloud of love that pours forth the nectar of the Master's gospel. Glory and salutations to Girish Bhairama, the embodiment of unwavering faith in the teacher. Glory and salutations to all the servants of Sri Ramakrishna. Glory and salutations to all the hallowed divine places associated with the life of Sri Ramakrishna. Glory and salutations to the divine name of Sri Ramakrishna, auspicious to those fortunate enough to hear it. Glory and salutations to the lotus feet of the Supreme Lord that fulfill the desires of the devotees.
Ramakrishna Nama Jaya, Shravana Mangala, Bhaktavanchi Jaya, Charana Kamala, Jaya Jaya Ramakrishna, Bhumana Mangala, Jaya Jaya Ramakrishna, Bhumana Mangala.
So, is it okay? This view is okay? Hello? Can you hear me?
Absolutely fine. Now your view is okay and things are absolutely fine. Don't deviate from here.
Okay. So, I will begin with chanting. Om Sthapakaya cha dharmasya sarva dharma sarupine avatar varishtaya Ramakrishnaya te namaha jananim sharadam devi Ramakrishna jagadguru pada padmetayo shritva pranamami muhurmuhur Namah Shri Atirajaya Vivekananda Suraye Satya Sukha Swarupaya Swami Netapaharine Kalinde Fulla Kamale Madhavena Kridarata Brahmananda Namastubhyam Tadguru Lokanayakam Gurur Brahma Gurur Vishnu Gurur Deva Maheshwara Guru Sakshat Param Brahma Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Om Sana Bhavato Sana Gunakto Sahaviryam Garvavahe Tejasvinavade Namastu Mavedvishavahe Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Welcome everybody from Ramakrishna Vedanta Society of Manila. I'm very happy to see at least so many people coming in spite of their busy schedule. So today we are all assembled here to talk about Swami Advaitananda, one of the direct disciples, 16 direct disciples of Sri Ramakrishna. We all know about Swami Vivekananda, but very few know about the other disciples. There are 16 disciples. Swami Vivekananda, of course, was the chief disciple, on the main, and there were, but all other disciples were equally important for our study and our lives, if we study their lives. You know, the disciples of Ramakrishna were quite diverse indeed. And since Guru Purnima was celebrated very recently, and then yesterday was Teachers' Day, it is an ideal time to start a discussion about Guru Shishya Parampara, or we can say student and teacher's relationship. Guru Shishya means we have to start, when we study the life of Ramakrishna, we will have to understand that his relationship with his own gurus like Bhairavi Brahmani, Totapuri and others, and then his relationship with his own disciples, of whom we all know that Swami Vivekananda was the chief or the main disciple. We may say that Holy Mother Sri Sharda Devi was the main and the first to be chosen as disciple, but we can discuss those details at a later time. Now the question comes, why do we need to study the lives of these disciples? We need to study because then we will know how spiritual people behave, how they came into spiritual life. These disciples are original gurus of our disciples. These direct disciples of Ramakrishna are original gurus of our order. We are not talking here about other women disciples or also the devotees today, but only of monastic disciples. In this Ramakrishna incarnation, we get relatively accurate historical biography. His teachings are recorded in the Gospel of Sri Ramakrishna, which was scripted in stenography format during his lifetime, and it was ensured by the Lord that his message is properly scripted. Then the question comes, was his message not enough? Why he brought a team of disciples along with him? The problem is, if we have one or two examples, then we will tend to mythologize into unapproachable beings in high pedestals. You see, if we have only one example, we will say, no, he's a god, he's a perfect being. So we will lose the attention. We cannot look towards them for ideology or anything like that. That is why we need more and more people of different qualities and temperaments, strength and weaknesses. So there should be some entity with which one can relate to, which is very, very important. That is why you see God always brings Leela Sahacharas. Once he brings his disciples who, along with him, put on an exemplary life for people to follow. In case of Ramakrishna's disciple, we actually do not have recorded teachings, and somehow they didn't leave much memoir for the people. So we have less information, and some of them than we have on others. In contrast, of Vivekananda or Advaitananda have volumes and volumes of teaching recorded against their name. We find that other disciples, even though they are having approach or take on some different take on some topics, but rarely they differ at all. So these teachings, apart from that, Swamiji was very, very, very in public. He was speaking a lot. So was Advaitanandaji, and they have some complete works. Swamiji has spoken so much that we have now complete works of Vivekananda into 9 volumes. Advaitanandaji is having even more because he was a scholarly and he was writing also many, many books. Swamiji has written few, but Advaitanandaji has written even more. So, but what about the other disciples? We find that disciples came from all walks of life. 2 were extremely poor, especially Swami Advaitananda. He was a poor boy from Bihar, an orphan boy who was working as a servant only when he came into the life of Sri Ramakrishna. And 5 were relatively very wealthy, like Raja Maharaj. They came from a very wealthy family, and rest were from middle class families like Swami Vivekananda. You see, some of the disciples were very soft and sweet, some were very strong and hard-tempered, some little educated, and some just brilliant. Some came out, some came to Sri Ramakrishna out of grief. They lost their wives or they faced some different sorrows in life, and some came out of curiosity. Who is this so-called God-man? And one even came, very interestingly, one of the disciples came in search of occult power to catch ghosts. Swami Niranjanananji. He was always into this kind of occult practices, and he came to Sri Ramakrishna in the hope of catching some ghosts. And Some, only very few, came out of deep spiritual learning looking for a teacher. 4 of the direct disciples were married but had lost their wives before coming to Sri Ramakrishna. So, to assuage their grief, they came to Sri Ramakrishna. Now, coming to specifically talk about Swami Advaitananda. Swami Advaitananda also was, as Mr. Ganguly said in front before this talk, that he was 8 years senior to Sri Ramakrishna, and that is, he was called Budo Gopal or the aged Gopal. So when he came, he was 8 years older than Ramakrishna, and he later on took a vow of monastic life at a very, very advanced stage. But during his coming, after his coming, he played a crucial role during the early years of Ramakrishna mission. Very little is known about his early life and education. We only know that he was an employee in a shop in China Bazaar, which belonged to Beni Madhapal, a member of the Brahmo Samaj, whose name appears in the Gospel of Sri Ramakrishna. Gopal was married at the time of meeting Ramakrishna for the first time. He was more than 50 years old. At the death of his wife, he was taken by a friend to Ramakrishna to assuage his grief. On the first visit, Gopal was not very impressed with Ramakrishna, but after a few more visits, he became devoted to him and served in various ways by bribing, provision, and running errands, and many other activities. He was specially engaged because as we all know that Ramakrishna was suffering from cancer, so he needed a special diet, and doctors also during that time had to instruct what kind of diet is to be prepared. And as we all know, that main cook was Holy Mother. So, but Holy Mother could not come in front of the doctors because she was too shy to come out in public. So that time Swami Advaitananda acted as a mediator between the two, passing on the instructions and then carrying the food from Holy Mother to Thakur, serving to Thakur, and things like that. So in short, he became a caretaker of Sri Ramakrishna. So then one day, it is one of the most interesting part of Advaitananda's life is that we should all know is that one day he expressed to Master that he wanted to distribute some upper clothes and rosaries to the monk. Hearing this, the Master said, "You don't have to go out in search of monks. You see, you will not find better monks than this young boys here," pointing to Narendra and other boys who were sitting over there. "You may give your clothes and rosaries to them." Thereupon, the Gopal, as he was called, placed a bundle of saffron clothes before the Master, who distributed this amongst the young disciples. Thus was sown the seed of future Ramakrishna order. So we see it was done interestingly. I was hearing one lecture there, Swamiji pointed out that this rosaries and this ochre cloth was distributed on 12 January 1886. And that was which is the English birthday of Swami Vivekananda. By English calendar, it is the birthday of Swami Vivekananda. So on 12th January 1886, Sri Ramakrishna gave 12 upper cloth along with rosaries to 12 direct disciples. And that was the basis, we say, that Sri Ramakrishna indirectly laid a foundation stone to building of Ramakrishna mission, and which came out in 1897, May 1897, as we know all that Ramakrishna order formally came into existence in May 1897. So in 1887, Gopal along with other disciples, they came as a lay devotees, but after the death of Sri Ramakrishna, they took the monastic vows, and Swami Gopalda, as he was Budo Gopal, was given the name Advaitananda, which Advaita means monism and Ananda means bliss. But after staying in Varanagar Mutt, initially all of them had started living in a very dilapidated building which is known as Varanagar Mutt. Then Advaitananda traveled to Benares, where he stayed for around 5 years. Benares is a holy city of Shiva. There, everybody, all the pilgrims want to go there because it is said that it is land of Shiva. Here he stayed in a small room where he rose up at 4 a.m. every day and bathed in Ganga river, after which he did spiritual practices for a day. He lived on Madhukari, begging small quantities of cooked food from various places. As per the injunction of the scripture, he spent time mostly in contemplation. You see, it is a practice of every monk that we have to beg and eat. Once you take a vow of sannyasa, you cannot touch fire, you cannot cook. That is the tradition in India. So you have to go from house to house begging for food. And once you are whatever you want to eat, that is there, you have to come back. Like the Buddhist monks also follow the same routine, that we get a cooked food and do not eat whatever we get that particular day. But Madhukari means like small portion. We cannot take something from a very big rich farm person and eat. It is advisable to monks that they should go to small and step things in offerings in small quantity. That was the practice, and that is what it was instructed by Sri Ramakrishna. He says that during this time Vivekananda was in America. When Vivekananda returned to India after his visit to West, Advaitananda returned to Alam Bazar, where the Ramakrishna Math had moved in. You see, earlier the first Ramakrishna mission was established in Baranagar Math, and then it shifted to very near place which is called Alam Bazar. We still have those places. Now it is under Ramakrishna Math and Mission. But when they were there, it was a dilapidated building, and often it is said that it is a haunted house, haunted by ghosts. Very interesting thing. But since they were not in a position to pay rent for a better accommodation, they moved to Alam Bazar. So when Vivekananda returned to India after his visit to West, Advaitananda returned to Alam Bazar, where the Ramakrishna Mission Math has moved. Afterward, when new monastery, you see, when Swamiji was in America itself, he decided that he will have a monastery, and so he should buy a place. And when he came back, with the help of his American devotees and well-wishers, a land in Belur was purchased. And there, once it is purchased, it was a huge land. So once it is purchased, Advaitananda also moved there. And there, he used to stay mostly there and looked after gardening and other managerial affairs. Even in his old age, he was self-sufficient. You see, he came to Sri Ramakrishna at the age of 56. So he was already very old. But even then, he was very, very active. Even in his old age, he was self-sufficient. After returning to the monastery, Advaitananda's special duty was to look after the leveling of the newly purchased land. You see, it was what should I say, the swamps and other land is, we had to put lot of renovation and repair work was necessary to make the land livable. So all that this repair and there were many old structures also which needed repairs. So all this work was allotted to Advaitananda, and he was taking care of this. And the land had been in use for repair of steamers, and hence was full of pits and tunnels. You see, now the Belur Math that we see, we cannot recognize, but when it was purchased at a very low price, but it was a land which was used for repair of steamers, etc. And hence it was full of pits and tunnels. All this meant strenuous work. When the monastery became fully established there, Advaitananda took up the duty of looking after the comforts of the monk and producing food. He sometimes expressed disappointment that he felt so short of the ideal. Being the oldest in the age, he was looked upon affectionately and regarded by his brother disciples, but they also enjoyed making fun with him. Swamiji composed a comical verse in order to tease Gopalda, but that really indicated in what great esteem Gopalda was held by all. Old Gopalda too had moments of humor, though he might be at the cost of others. Swami Udaaranandaji related one such incident. He, Gopalda, and Nityananda Maharaj were staying in Belur Math with several monks and brahmacharis. Calling them, Swami Nityananda said, "Well, look, come here and dig up this plot of land. I shall raise brinjals and potatoes here." And then they started digging. Seeing this, Gopalda said, "Oh, what a hard labor they have put to. Come away, all of you boys. They should be made so work hard." As if he was pretending to get angry on blaming Nityananda for making the boys work very hard. And then Gopalda took them along with him, and then he told them quietly, "You brothers, dig up this plot for flower bed." The soil of the later part was actually harder than the first. Swamiji and other monks had a hearty laugh when they heard Gopalda saying that. In those days of hard work and hard life and hardships, monks also knew how to lighten the burden through humor. But Gopalda was not always successful with all. He disliked tea, while Swami Shubhadananda cherished it. Gopalda warned all of them that if they drink tea, it would lead them to dysentery. But Subodhananda asserted that emphatically that each drop of tea in the cup would produce a drop of blood. Interestingly, Gopalda was called Senior Gopal and Buddha Gopal, and Subodhananda was called Khoka Maharaj, young boy. Khoka is very young boy. Both are very different. One was very senior and one was very young. So, very interesting thing is that this type of fights amongst the direct disciple is very interesting. After his return to the monastery, Gopal's special duty was to look after. Gopalda met strenuous effort to mold his life according to life and example of the master, but would sometimes express disappointment that he felt so short of the ideal. But this feeling of disappointment indicated his real spiritual height. Because of his age, Gopalda did not engage himself in any public activity, philanthropic, missionary, or otherwise, so that his monastic life was quite uneventful. But so long as he was in this physical body, he definitely set an example to all, and that he was source of inspiration to many. His uniform steadfastness in sadhana till the last days of his life elicited admiration, if not reverence, even from his brother disciple. His love for truth was wonderful. He heard Master say that one should not twist truth even to make fun. And Gopalda obeyed his instruction in letter and spirit and insisted on others in doing likewise. Swami Udaaranandaji once said, "We are much indebted to Gopalda because we learned the secret of work from him. He was organized and concentrated on everything he did, and he was very methodical in his habit. Until his last day, he regularly practiced meditation. In 1901, he was made the trustees of Ramakrishna Vedanta Mission, later becoming the vice president. Even in his old age, he declined any personal assistance, believing that monks should be self-reliant. He chanted the Gita daily and accompanied the other monks on tabla when they sang. Especially, you see, it is said that whenever Swami Vivekananda used to sing, he was on tabla. He was playing tabla during that time. Swami Advaitananda left his mortal coil on 20th December 1909 at the age of 81, chanting the name of Sri Ramakrishna. So, this is life of Advaitananda in short. Now the question is how and why Sri Ramakrishna bought so many? Because and he was very, this we will discuss in subsequently how Sri Ramakrishna trained his disciples and how he inspired each to be different, and each person was different. Yesterday I had sent one this Swamiji said education means when teacher will come at the level of the student and then from there he will raise. Sri Ramakrishna did exactly that. Instead of having a singular format, he as per the requirement, as Holy Mother used to say that we have to prepare several dishes according to the stomach of the children. Where one will take too spicy food, somebody cannot digest too much of spicy food. Similarly, each temperament, each mental setup, everything is different. Capacity to learn, capacity to express, it is so different. And but Sri Ramakrishna took upon him to inspire each and every fellow in a different manner, as per the capacity of the disciple, as per the requirement of the disciple. He inspired them and taught them as necessary. So with these few words, it is already some time. I was actually thinking of talking only for 15 minutes. I think I have already exceeded. So with Om Shanti 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 Hari Om Tat Sat Sri Ramakrishna Arpanamastu.
Thank you, Maharaji, for your very exhaustive description and explanation of the life and teachings of Advaitanandaji and how each disciple was different and how Ramakrishna chose different people to be his disciples, and they had different qualities. Very interesting indeed. So we can now conclude today's session, but we can meet informally after for 5 minutes or so after this session. So, Maharaji, do you have anything further to say?
Nothing more to say. It is, we can conclude.
Okay, we conclude today's session. Thank you so much for joining today's meeting. It is our second attempt to have online celebration. Last time we had Janmashtami celebration. Now we are having birthday Tithi Puja celebration, birthday of Advaitanandaji, the aged Gopal, as he is called. So I think we'll have, as Maharajji has mentioned before, we'll have similar programs on special occasions of Ramakrishna order and also on the other birthday celebrations that will happen. We'll be having online celebration before we meet physically. So thank you very much. Thank you, everybody. Once again, we, on behalf of Ramakrishna Vedanta Society, we wish you good health, and we hope that your relatives, family, and loved ones are doing well. And we'll take this opportunity to remind you, we have a next lecture on Sunday at 5:30 p.m. Philippine time, on 12th of September 2021, and this lecture will be given by a very, very learned monk. He has a PhD from California University in English literature, Swami Medhananda. He has done a lot of research work. He has done work on dialectics, Hegelian concept of dialectics, which Marx also used. So it will be very interesting, and he will be speaking on harmony, religious harmony. He will be speaking on Sri Ramakrishna, the apostle of harmony. So it will be very interesting for all of us. Please join the program. With these words, we conclude today's program. Please give me 30 seconds to stop recording, and then we will come back for 5 minutes where we can have informal discussion. Thank you very much. Please give me 5 minutes, 30 seconds to stop recording.
প্রণাম মহারাজ, শম্পা বলছি চন্দননগর থেকে।
ভালো তো খবর?
হ্যাঁ ভালো মহারাজ।
ভেরি গুড, খুব ভালো। জয়েন করার জন্য ধন্যবাদ।
হ্যাঁ মহারাজ, লিংক পাঠিয়েছিলেন তাই জয়েন করতে পারলাম।
ভেরি গুড, ভেরি গুড। জয়েন তো করতে হবে, সবাই করলে ভালো লাগে। ধীরে ধীরে আমারও হবে একটু বলা। এখন